Welcome to All In with Allie podcast, the podcast for business owners and entrepreneurs who are ready to create the life and business of their dreams. I'm nervous because this is my first
interview.
I'm so excited.
Thank you.
We did it.
We figured it out.
We figured it out. I'm so happy. Clearly, my setup is a hot mess. But now that we know that this is possible, I'm going to get another mic.
Good.
And I mean, it's not bad, right?
No, looks great.
We're doing the best we can over here, which is great for this episode because we're going to be talking all about homeschooling. Because when it comes to homeschooling, that is your jam. You've been doing it forever before it was a hot topic. But before we get to that, let's talk about you. What's so amazing about my guest right here, Rachel Van Kluyve, is she and her husband, Rich, are not only business owners of multiple businesses, multiple Airbnbs. You are an author.
I'm tired.
You're tired. If you don't, thank you for saying that, by the way, and thank you for just owning it. Because,
I'm tired.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk all about it. But you're an author. You have 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls. Your girls are adopted. You have an incredible audience on social media where you share so much of your journey, so much about your own struggles as a mom, and not just the sunshiny parts of your beautiful life, because they own like the most beautiful home. Her Instagram handle, you guys probably follow her, is at Creighton Cottage, and their house is just stunning. You basically have a compound. Your parents live next door. Your best friends live next door.
We really sound like homeschoolers. So.
Yeah, like serious homes. I mean, the most beautiful setup you've ever seen. Me and my family, we used to live across the street from you, and that's how we met.
Right.
And then now we live a little bit further apart, but still pretty close, thank God. And you do it all in addition to homeschooling.
Yes. Again, tired.
How many kids are homeschooling right now?
So I have 13, almost 8, 5, and then 2. So technically only my 2 oldest.
Okay.
My 5-year-old goes to a Mother's Day out, which again, not against schooling whatsoever. So we'll talk about that. But so I have a little break right now too, but I can't imagine when all 4. But I'm getting help, and we'll go over that too. So
yeah, that we got a ton of questions. So I got questions from Instagram, and there were a lot of them, and we have them organized, and they're not really, I tried to get them in a little bit better of an order, and it just is what it is. So we're going to get into those, but we got a ton of questions around help and how you manage it and what your schedule looks like. And
yeah, I'll first say that I was never planning on homeschooling. I went to public school through 6th grade and then private school through my senior year. My husband went to public school. The homeschool group was weird to me, if I'm being completely honest, because back in the 90s, they were a little odd. Nobody did it. You could tell they were not sociable. And I think that's what people are carrying into homeschooling now. And it's a completely different world. And so I want to first say there's no judgment for me to moms that homeschool or choose school. Like this is just me being informative about homeschool, because some people will see this as, hurting their feelings because they're not doing it. And that's not it at all. I have no judgment. It was just something we chose that worked for our family and for our kids. And I think you can tell that with your children. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But some kids thrive on the social school setting and some don't.
Yeah.
And so the reason I started homeschooling is because my first, who now I know is dyslexic and had some learning issues, he was so anxious in Mother's Day out. We started with Mother's Day out 2 days a week. I was trying to prep him for kindergarten, and he just was a hot mess for 3 years in Mother's Day out. I thought, this will get better. It never got better. So I decided kindergarten, I'd go to this homeschool conference and just feel it out. I could do kindergarten. That was it. I was like, I'll just do kindergarten. Shapes, colors, numbers, fun, whatever. And then now it's 9 years later of homeschooling, because it's just what worked for us. So that's how I started.
Wow. Okay. So that's why, because he was dyslexic, he was having issues.
I didn't know he was dyslexic till about 3rd grade, though. I could just tell his anxiety wasn't one to be in a classroom. I don't know if that was a mom's intuition or what, but I just started, I'll just do kindergarten. And I think a lot of people have that same feeling. I get that question a lot. Like, I'm not ready to let him go to school. I don't know what to do. I don't know if I can do it. And we'll talk about that. But for me, it was, I'm going to explore this because just for kindergarten, maybe he'll get a little bit better.
Yeah.
And it's just what pushed me in that direction.
So you guys did kindergarten, and then what made you decide, okay, let's also do first grade?
Thankfully, I had a homeschool community that I already knew. My sister went for a year to the same one where we attend. And I think a lot of people don't know about homeschool communities. So there's something called tutorials, co-ops, and pods. Someone asked about pods. And I think that's something you just need to explore. Facebook, your hip, what are they called? Like little hip community groups. Just type in homeschool in my city. There's a lot of options. So I want to go over that too. But I just knew of some options. And so I explored those. And then happenstancely, my best friend also did it too with her. And they were in the same grade. So we're like, we'll just do homeschool together this kindergarten year and see what happens. And then it just turned into more of a lifestyle. Now, my husband and I both work from home. Mm-hmm. So it was easy for us. We weren't going into, rushing off to work or that kind of a thing. So we could sit at home and leisurely wake up when we wanted. And I think it's just different for every family. That's why I want to preface, this may not work for you, but if you're interested in it and you feel like you're led to do it, then there's tons of options to figure out how.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love how you said, like, we don't want anybody to feel bad if you do work full time or if you don't have the desire to homeschool your kids.
Oh, yeah. That comes and goes for me, too.
Yeah. Well, same. Cruz is supposed to start kindergarten in the fall. Mm-hmm. And we've gone back and forth nonstop. And then, lately it's like the nail in the coffin gets deeper and deeper and deeper. So, so this last time that we've experienced the latest shooting, I was like, okay, we've got to, we're in this stage where we need to learn more anyway. And I just thought, what a cool opportunity because I would want to pick your brain on the subject anyway. So to have you here, because a lot of people are now like, okay, at least let me know what my options are, because I know a lot of people, whether you have a business or you work somewhere else outside of the home, it sounds like there are other options where you don't have to do the teaching.
Right. Okay. Oh, completely. I can go over those, but so what we do is we go to school on Monday to a tutorial. Tutorials are teacher led. So my son has a math teacher, a science teacher, a English teacher, art teacher, all the teachers, and he switches period by period, both my boys, an hour in art, an hour in science, just like you would think of a typical school. And then on Monday they I can let them go from 8 to 4 or, whatever it is. One of them goes till noon just because of the classes they offered. Some are extracurricular. And then the teachers send home essentially the work with me for the week. So there's you're off the hook a little bit for planning curriculums. They send me the work. He has to do this on Tuesday, this on Wednesday, or this is what's due next Monday. You figure out how you're going to work it with them. So that's an option. Some homeschool options are called co-ops, where they're parent-led. So you're just part of a community. Essentially, you go on one certain day of the week for a few hours. The parents lead the group setting. That's another option. There's also simply just online options. I actually have a friend that does public school online for her kids. If you simply Google public school online, it will pull up. I know K-12 is a online platform for public school online.
K-12. Okay.
And so
do a bunch of show notes.
You can actually have the teacher come up and give you your child's assignment. Like you aren't the one always teaching. I think there's variations of homeschool moms, some that sit and all the kids gather around and you're reading, which I did for a couple years. You're reading the same thing. It depends on the child's age group.
What's that called? Mom Summit? Moms, would you say?
I just made that up. I don't know. Some moms. I think I said.
Oh, okay.
Some
I heard it
moms will actually enjoy the teaching part, or maybe that is something innate in them. That's not the case for me. It used to be, but as I added more children, it got a little more difficult.
Wait
a minute. This may not be. So that's option, and then there's also pod options, which I'm going to be doing next year. Just to give me a little relief, where a friend of mine, her 2 girls, and then my 3 are going to join at my home We have like a homeschool room, and I have a teacher coming in to teach them Montessori style, which is where, they'll teach a whole lesson on history and everyone can learn from it. Now they'll individually work on math, etc., but that's another option. And I found her just through word of mouth, through the school we're part of. A lot of public school teachers are wanting to go get out of the system.
Imagine.
And they're really open to in-home tutoring and being that teacher. So there's a lot of options. All I have to say, there's a lot of options for parents. Public school, online, pods, tutorials.
Mom-led.
I mean, there's just a lot of options. It's not just you. And I think that's what I want people to know. It's not just all on you. There's a whole community of options for people.
So cool. Okay, so just to reiterate, to make sure that we understand, there's the online option. Pods would be multiple kids being taught either by a teacher or you, but multiple kids in one
or you
place.
hire someone, yeah.
You would hire, okay.
Essentially.
A tutorial. Now, what's the difference between tutorial and a school? Because it sounds like a school.
It is. It's just only one day a week, usually.
Okay.
So, and it's more led by parents or board member. We have board members whose children also went there, and they've kind of pick up the slack, and they're leading the school, and the teachers get paid. That's the difference.
Okay.
So we're paying for these classes, whereas a co-op is just parent led, and you're part of that community. Now you may pay for the building you're part of or whatever it is, but the tutorial for me was a relief because I am not going to be good at geometry. I'm not going to be good at this, but they do offer those services. And so many of those women there and teachers are qualified in all these things as well. So it was just a no-brainer for me to get the help with the school part, with the curriculum part. Here's your work for Monday, take it home. This is what you have to do by next Monday. That kind of a thing.
Yeah, because past second grade, it's like, okay, now that we're talking about math, I'm out.
I'm out.
There's just no way. So when you guys do the pods, did you say that you're still going to do the tutorial for those specific classes?
Yeah, so actually they'll go on Monday. They'll do the classes there, whether it's English or whatever they've chosen. I can't even remember. I have so many going. But then they'll have that work. So they'll bring that home. And then on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, this is what we're doing for a few hours. The teacher will go over the things that's not taught at school and then work with them individually on what they do have to do the next week.
Got it.
And then I left Friday open just for field trip days or just any time to catch up on the schoolwork. So I'm trying to create more of a schedule. I need more help. And I've never done pod. I've never had someone come in. I've had tutors, a lot of tutors.
Mm-hmm.
That's another option. Like I take my kids, the boys, to a tutor 2 days a week, and she works with them on whatever I need her help with for the week. So there's just a lot of options, and there's a lot of women out there that will gladly, pick up your slack, and they're looking for jobs or that are retired and just love kids and need a couple hours worth of pay a week. And anyway, there's just options, and you create within it your own community. And one of the main questions for homeschooling is, aren't you worried your kids will be sociable? And I just Mythbuster. Of course they're going to be sociable.
She doesn't keep her kids locked in the schoolroom, guys.
Or in our house all the time. They don't live in a bubble. I think that's a misconception simply because they're not in a school 8 to 3. They're not bound to a classroom to sit still and quiet. They are part of karate. They go to dance during the times that your child is sitting in school. So they're part of communities in so many more ways just because we have created the time for it. And instead of coming home, doing homework, eating, brushing teeth, and going to bed, we're done with our day, at 3 and can be together as a family. For me, that was it. I've watched nieces and I've just watched kids come home, myself included, so stressed from the day as a 12-year-old, and then have 2 hours of homework.
Yeah.
And then not seeing my parents because I'm doing the homework, and then brushing my teeth and going to bed. To me, that wasn't something I could keep up with. I just have a different aspect on life. I want my kids to live. I want to feed into what they're good at. I think had someone recognized the things in me that I loved, and fed it more, maybe I would have been more successful in certain areas. Mm-hmm. Like my one son is the artist. He's the creative one. Mm-hmm. He is not the school one. So we've made him a little YouTube room, and He's teaching kids how to draw, and I've got his big logo being made at a sign shop right now. I mean, it's just like I'm trying to feed that entrepreneurial spirit in him.
Yeah.
And I can because we have time. And I think it's just about homeschooling. The biggest thing for me is just noticing your kids' moods and how they're feeling and what's going on in there. You're with them so much that you know that person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, something's off with you today. Why? And then you go into the aspect of this one's really good at being an outdoorsman. I need to feed that a little bit. You know, it's just like feeding their passion and desire that you've actually come to notice. I think that's a major thing for me in homeschooling.
That's what excites us the most too, besides the time piece, because, personally, Chris and I, we both work from home. We want to travel more. Mm-hmm. We don't want to be beholden to this super strict schedule where you have to, you can't miss a certain amount of days because truancy.
Oh, yeah. That's a nightmare.
I almost didn't graduate because of that.
Yeah.
So
that was a big thing for us too. We wanted our own schedule.
Because you guys have Airbnbs in multiple locations. You guys are all, I mean, you have John Mayer concerts to go to.
A lot.
That are a priority. Huge John Mayer fan.
Yeah, sorry.
Might be the biggest ever.
I am.
So, but yeah, it's the timepiece, but then also that personalization as well. Because Rhett's 6 months, but like Cruz as 5, I mean, he also very creative, very science-minded, not really much into sports yet, but like you start to notice these patterns, and I want to
mold it.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing. You get to mold your child.
Yeah.
And again, there's nothing wrong with wonderful teachers that do that. It's just for our family, it was more important to have those years with them.
Yeah.
Than to send them to someone else that gets to do it. And that was a big deciding factor for me. There's another misconception.
What's the other misconception? Well, there's probably a lot.
So your child won't be socialized. That's false. Oh, they won't be prepared for college.
Yeah, how does that work?
Or I'm not equipped and I'll fall behind. That was someone else. How do you feel equipped? I don't feel equipped. That was a big thing. I was a 4.0 student, magna cum laude, all the things. But I busted my A doing it. And I can already tell my boys are not going to be that way. But I get help, like we just talked about. I get help. I seek out a tutor. I'm seeking out someone to come teach them that just graduated with her degree in education. Like I'm going to seek help. Our school offers math tutoring on the side. There's ways to get help when you're to a point that you can't teach anymore or you don't feel equipped. And simply, there are full online programs. I have a friend of mine whose son, he was in the public school system. He has ADHD. He was always in trouble, always sitting by the teacher's desk because he wouldn't sit still. Super smart kid, like super smart. So they took him out. He does, I'll have to think of the name of it, but he does a program where he logs in every morning. The teacher pops up in a video. They're not live videos, but the science teacher pops up. He does his science workbook stuff. Then the English teacher pops up. It takes him about 3 to 4 hours, but he does it on his own. Some kids are independent learners like that. Mm-hmm. And that's it. And he puts his school away. And he has changed immensely, from what he was in a public school setting. So there are online platforms that do it for you, is what I'm trying to say. And you don't have to be
and what we're looking
fully equipped.
For, they need to be accredited to then
for the college stuff. So there's a website, I'm going to tell you. It's called
I'm writing it down.
hslda.org.
Okay.
That will tell you what is required in your state. Every state is different. In Tennessee, we're required to have 4 hours of learning a day. How they know that, they don't. But learning, this is another thing when you homeschool, you have to take your mind outside of we're learning in a classroom. The world is your child. Like your son told me he's going to look for caterpillars.
Yeah.
That is his 30 minutes of science for the day. You have to you have to get your mind, because for me it was so hard.
Life hack.
It's not sitting at a chair in my house like they do school and outside. They hunt, my son hunts. It's just everything's learning. They're cooking dinner with me. That's learning. So the 4 hours is the world around them. It's not just 4 hours sitting at a desk doing math, science, English.
So would reality TV as what, like life sciences?
Hey, sometimes I say get on YouTube and find something that you're interested in and watch a video on it. So one of mine is into fishing right now. So he's telling me all about the biggest bass in the world, like just things like that.
So
I think that it's just, there's just so many ways to learn. That's what I want to get across. And the misconceptions of not being equipped is a lie to yourself. You can find help and you don't have to be the one person. Now with college, so in Tennessee, like I was saying, check that website. It will tell you what's required in your state. Some states require nothing. Like you don't even have to turn in your grades. So in Tennessee, we're required to have an umbrella school, which is your main hub, if you think of it, where I report my grades to. So the tutorial I'm a part of will collect our grades, but we as parents are responsible for turning them into whatever umbrella school we've chosen. So in our area, I'm a part of another one. And twice a year, I send in my grades. And yes, they're your grades, what you feel your child made. You can fib it, honestly, or you can, like really consider what your child is lacking in. Essentially, the tutorial will give you also your grade. So that's where it helps me. Like my kids go for all their classes, so the teachers will give me a grade and then I fill it in on my paperwork. And that's what I turn in. And then they turn it into the state and keep record of my child's education. And then in starting in ninth grade, you have to meet certain requirements for the credits. Some schools are different with testing. Mine does not require ACT or SAT testing unless they're college bound. I think it's one ACT you take if you're college bound, which my son is dyslexic. He's not, I don't think he'll be college bound, and I'm okay with that. I think that's another mentality you have to get out of, especially in this day and age. People don't have to go to college to make money. And it's just, you have to let go of that standard testing classroom mentality. And I'm 9 years in, I'm just now like letting go of that.
Being comfortable of it.
Right. Because I know it's a lot of people's fears. Their kid's going to get behind. How do you know? That's another thing. How do you know if they're going to be caught up? You don't, because that's the point of homeschooling, is you let go of the caught up part.
Yeah.
You just do.
Well, it's the same thing in school too. I mean, yes, they have grades, but there are so many kids that might make a grade, but socially are behind in different ways. I mean, it's different for every kid. So, but I like that you have the tutorials that help you grade, and I feel like as parents, we don't want to flunk our kids, but we're going to be honest. Like, okay, it's time to get a tutor in because we want to do right by our children.
Right. And there's another website called LXL Learning, I think it's called. And if you're one of those that needs to know, like everyone needs to know what a second grader needs to learn. So they're going to like look up, okay, let me get a little viewpoint of he needs to start to know, double digit adding or whatever maybe multiplication. I don't think so in second grade, but
probably by now.
Yeah, that's too much stress for me. But it will give you an idea and of what a second grader would need to know. And that's helpful for me. There's so many workbooks on Amazon. If you just type in second grade and it'll pull up, your child's grade. And I just flip through and I'm like, okay, just to get a little mindset. Other kids are learning how to read the clock right now and coins and, that kind of thing. So I know kind of where to start. But that site will really be helpful for like knowing what other kids their age are learning. And then you can kind of judge like, well, maybe I should push a little further with this, or maybe it may take him a little longer, or heck no, I'm not teaching that in second grade. You know what I mean? It gives you an idea of what.
Yeah, because that was a question that came up a lot, is where do you even get the lesson plans? How do you even know what needs to be taught? So you're saying the LXL Learning, that website will tell you per grade.
And Google tells you everything. Someone else asked if it was expensive. It can be free. When I went to that first conference, they were like, you can teach your kindergartner or anyone really with a library book and YouTube. And I think that's so true. I print off worksheets all the time just from screenshots of something I found. Yeah. Like, it doesn't have to be, books upon books upon books that you're paying for. There's so many resources that are free. Now, in the tutorial, I do pay per hour, the teachers that teach. That's a choice we made. And it's still beyond less than any, private school or anything like that.
Like
I think it's like $25 for the class.
An hour?
No, for like the class itself. But I know the teachers should make so much more money than that. So it's like
like $25 an hour. Great.
It's like $100 like for the month, you know what I mean? For that class.
Yeah.
So, and they have some discounts and things like that, but there're just so many options. And I had a struggle. I'll go into the curriculum really quick. My first year, I was like, I'm buying everything. The whole big kit cost $900 for kindergarten. And I really wish someone was like, Rachel, it's numbers, it's Play-Doh, it's letters.
It's blocks, Rachel. You have everything in your house.
I wish someone had said that to me, but I wanted to flip open a page that said, on Monday, March, whatever, you're going to teach X, Y, Z. And I had to check it off. After about 2 weeks of that, it didn't happen anymore. I was like, I'm going to tell all mothers of kindergartners or people wanting to do this, don't buy the big kits. There's hundreds of curriculum choices. I can list some in your show notes that I've enjoyed learning. But if I'm being completely honest, I've never stuck to one. I'm one of those people that just likes to pick and choose. And I'm like, that'll work. A really great one is teaching textbooks for math. It starts in 3rd grade though, but it is literally, you log in, the man comes on, he tells you, it's cool. It's really digital. The kids will know immediately how to use it because it's like really user-friendly and colorful. They teach the lesson. They walk them through the example. They can like scribble on their iPad to get the answers and to do the math. And then it reports to the parent what the child missed and if they need help in a certain area and if they completed their work. That's just been really, really nice to use. There's just tons of curriculum options, and I've just gone back and forth. Abeka is another good one that has a full online program.
What is that?
It's Abeka, Abeka. Okay. They have a full online program. That's the one that my friend's son does.
Who is ADHD?
Who is ADHD, and he just logs in it, which is funny because he will sit and listen to those teachers lecture, which my son couldn't. I tried that option. It wasn't for him.
I'm trying to think what Cruz would be into, and sitting still
is not.
So I don't
know.
To like
I think for him, as with ADHD, it was if I get this done, I'm free. So I'm going to knock this out and be free for the rest of the day and be creative or whatever he needed. But that's another thing. I couldn't stick to one curriculum because I would open it and be like, this isn't going to work for my kid. And then I would put it down and have to try another one. And I think it's just give or take and being willing to kind of feel things out. If you just type in best homeschool curriculum, there are tons of them.
Yeah. Okay.
So
do your research. There's lots out there.
I would first say learn what your state requires.
First. Okay.
Because that's going to determine if you need a certain type of umbrella school, or if you can join a tutorial and who you turn your grades into, or if you simply can just, teach at home. And then I would definitely Google community groups after that and just see what your options are.
Okay.
And as far as like, if your kids are already in school, you just go to the school office and say, we're doing homeschool. I need to remove them, or this next year we're going to be homeschooling. And then I'm pretty sure you show proof of whatever your state requires to them. And then they release your child. So
release them into the wild.
Yeah.
When it comes to sports with the boys and the senior girls, well, Louie's in dance. No, Valerie's
in dance.
How does that, because you guys go midday, right? But most kids are in school. Or do you wait till all the kids are out of school?
It depends. Like my son did karate for 4 years and they had a 12:30 class and there was mostly homeschool kids in it.
Oh, cool.
And it was a small class, but which was great because it was more focused on him and his skill. Our dance is after school hours because that's just the only thing they offer. But there are a lot of places that offer, 1 day a week, midday, whatever. And what I do want to say is with our tutorial, because people get in their mind, my kids get a yearbook. This was a big deal for me because I came from like typical school. My kids get a yearbook. They go to prom. I'm helping with the prom committee. It's a huge deal. They get rolled out a red carpet and the limos pull up. It's just, it's a typical, you get those typical school.
That is so cool.
What else? They have father-daughter dances and Easter egg hunt this coming week and just field day, like all the things.
Is this
through our tutorial.
The tutorial does
so
that.
our group, there are so many right in our area, 3 or 4. But anyways, they're around. Now, if you live real rurally, you may have to drive into a big city once a week or whatever it is. That may not be an option for you. Again, do your research. But my kids get those opportunities. And in relation to sports, legally in the state of Tennessee, any kid is allowed to try out for a high school team that's homeschooled. So
Did y'all hear that?
if my son wanted to be on the local high school's basketball team, he as a homeschooler would be just go in with the tryouts, and they legally have to let him play. Now,
and then you would practice with the team.
Right, and do the whole thing like that.
Nice.
For him, it was more like, I'm not going to join a team that's all these guys I don't know, and I'm coming in as a homeschool kid. You know, that may be an issue, but we also in Tennessee have something called the Tennessee Heat, which is the Homeschool Association for Sports. They have every sport you can imagine: volleyball, basketball, football, and they all play against normal schools, against public schools in the area.
That's cool.
And they have, you may not even know that your kid's sports team is playing a homeschool team.
Right.
You know what I mean? So my kids have never, ever lacked in social settings, is what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's just that old mindset. And, you know, like you said, in the 80s and 90s, when it was the homeschool kids that were a little antisocial.
Right.
But
because there wasn't as many possibilities. And COVID really changed that for so many people.
Yeah.
Like, maybe I can do this at home, or heck no, I'm not ever doing this at home.
Yeah.
Or maybe they saw a difference in their child's behavior at home. You know, there's just, I think the whole point of this is to tell you there are options no matter what place you're in. If you work full time and you have somebody that can watch your child, they can do it via computer, or they can be dropped at a tutor that helps you during the week. There's just options. And I think that's what I want people to know.
Okay. So a lot of people want to know, because I realize you're making a shift in the support that you're bringing on, and, you know, bringing on tutors and the co-op or the pod that you guys are going to be doing. And you do the tutorial right now as well. But since you run your business from home, what did your schedule look like when, like, the boys were in kindergarten, for example, and you were just getting started? What did your typical day look like? How did you manage that with your business?
Well, I don't manage it as well as you do yours. I
don't know.
I've kind of let it go, girl, after this last child we adopted. I'm like, I can't do all things at once. And I think that's a big realization.
We have 4 kids.
I know, but I used to wake up, my boys would come down, and we would immediately start, because if I waited, they wouldn't, you know, like, no screens, nothing before we do this. Mm-hmm. This cannot, you know, be a second option. So we would sit and I would read them like a devotion and everything. I would give them hand manipulatives while I would read to them. And I think that was really helpful.
What's that?
Just like Play-Doh or kinetic sand or whatever it was, so that they would listen better that way. And I would get through like morning reading with them. And I think that's so important too, is picking up a classic book and reading it. I don't do that now because both my boys are in literature classes and they're required to read on their own. But in the beginning, that's how my day would look. And then I would say, okay, like yesterday, I said, rock, paper, scissors, who's going to do school first? And they're like doing it. And I'm like, you know, they get mad at each other. No, you're going first. So then I would take one and do the individual work and then do the other. But my kids are 5.5 years apart, the 2 oldest. So that was difficult a little bit for me. If your kids are close in age, you just teach them all the same thing at the same time. And if they're, you know, I have so many friends whose kids are 2.5 years apart, but the younger one's just as smart as the older one, or picking up on it already because they've been listening to it and they're hearing it. So they're already on the same level. And so she just teaches them all together. I think it's, again, going to depend on your kid. And then, honestly, it was like maybe for kindergarten, it was like an hour. You will teach your kid for an hour. You're maybe going to get 15 to 20 minutes of their undivided attention.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have to mix in some fun things, and then you're going to have to go outside. There's so many things. If you look up, like, how many hours a day does a child actually learn in public school, and it's no more than 3. I mean, think about it.
I think 3
it's less
is
pushing
generous.
Because they're recessed. They're walking to this and walking to that and going to, you know, choir or library. It's a mixing it. And they're not physically sitting and learning for that long. And so my day would look like that. Then we'd have lunch and then we'd be free.
Nice.
You know what I mean? I'd try to get it done before lunch because then I'd want to have an afternoon to maybe squeeze in a few things for myself, a podcast or whatever it was I was working on. And my husband works from home, so we would trade off. He doesn't teach the kids, but he, you know, if I'm done and then I need to go do something, can you switch? Now it's turned into the 3rd and the 4th child. we need a little more help to do this. And again, that's going to vary from family to family. And but for me, it was best to wake up and get it going and know that they can't have free time until it's done. Mm-hmm. Now, some kids older sleep in, like my teenager right now sleeps till noon. Sometimes I'm like, come on. I mean, he still goes to bed at, 10:30 and he just needs that sleep. And I'm like, okay, well, when you get up, you're going to have to do this. This is what you have to finish in a day. Mm-hmm. He fights me on it, and he is not my school kid because of his dyslexia. So I told my husband, like, we just got to get him to graduate. That's honestly the truth. Like, yeah, the kid can hunt and clean. It's kind of gross to some people. He can clean the deer, hunt the deer, cook it, pack it. I mean, he is like I know, gross, but he's the outdoorsman. He can do any of it on his own. I'm like, that's your skill set.
There you go.
I don't know what you're going to do with it, but he loves all things.
And he's also the YouTuber too.
No, that's my 8-year-old.
That's Liam.
He's, it's just following into the skill set of what your kids love. Yeah. And it may not be school. And I've come to terms with that as like a straight A student. Like, it may not be school for him. And another thing, I went to college online, and all 4 years, it was right when online college, like, it's not a big deal now. I went to school online. My mom was like, do not do this. You'll regret your decision. You're going to miss out on so much life. And it wasn't even a thing. My guidance counselor was like, that is not going to work. Like, there's not a possibility. And
what year was that?
2003. Well, 2004 is when
that must have been right when it became available.
Because there was one program, and it had to link through Tennessee Tech. It linked through, and I did all 4 years that way. And maybe that prepped my heart for homeschool, because I was like, I had the discipline to do this. And now it's not even a big deal. Like, I told my son, you can take some classes online from home and still homeschool in a way.
Wait, so why did you want to do that?
I just had no desire to go to college. I'm not a social butterfly. Yeah. And I was dating my husband, and he was at a school in Nashville, and I was like, I'm just not going to go away to a school. I'd have no desire. It just never was in me to do that. My parents hated it, but then they were like, okay, that's fine.
But I love that you had that self-leadership to understand that. I mean, in high school, to know yourself that well and to be that confident in your own decision.
I mean, I've thought now, like, should I have done that? What would I have gained of it? Some parties? Like, you know what I mean? It wouldn't have benefited me in any way. I just say that to say, parents, there's options for college. Don't push your kid too far one way. Yeah. I think it backfires.
Yeah. Look at your kid and what makes sense. Mm-hmm. We don't have to be so rigid anymore. And that's with anything. We have so many different options. This is what I preach on all day when it comes to business. Mm-hmm. We don't have to do the quote traditional path unless you want to. There are so many other ways to make money and to make a living. And so it sounds like the same thing with schooling. Thank God.
Right.
Okay. So what would you say are the major challenges that you face? Just having the kids home, but you let me know.
Yeah, I just think there's a general sense of all homeschool moms that are like, am I doing enough? But isn't that the general sense for all moms? Yeah. Did I do enough today? You're laying in bed. I shouldn't have yelled at him that way. I should have taught him more this way. Maybe if I, was more patient. Like, that whole thing comes into play with homeschooling. And that's where I've like, Rachel, you've got to get help, because if I say, hey, boys, let's sit down. No, they don't want to do it for me. But if another woman comes in, they are on it. And I'm like, I'm learning. Now, my girls may be totally different. I tend to see girls liking worksheets and like, they like the challenge and the purpose of something. That's what I'm starting to see. Mm-hmm. But my boys give me a hard time. And that's the truth. Like, sometimes it's tears and crying and screaming, and I'm just like, why did I do this? And someone told me once, write down your why and put it up somewhere. And I'm sure this is in business too, because...
Ooh, that's good.
If I don't, and I have never written it down. Well, maybe I did once, but I know it in my head, like, I'm doing this for freedom. I'm doing this so no one controls my time. I'm doing this so that I get my kids for full 18 years. Like, I go through the mental list in my head of why I'm doing this.
It's like,
and I have to take a deep breath. And then I'm like, don't forget your why. And someone told me that you're going to need to read that 1 million times while you're homeschooling your children. And I do have to do that some days. And I'm learning, like, they'll do better for someone else. So maybe that's what I'm going to have to lean toward is letting go of me feeling in control and letting a tutor come in, or, another teacher, or doing the tutorial at a school where they listen better.
A question that I have is, where are you finding these teachers, like the ones that's going to come in with the pod?
That was word of mouth through my friend. Again, someone asked me this yesterday too. How do you find someone? Word of mouth. You call your local homeschooling groups, see if anyone tutors on the side. I found my son with his dyslexia. He did a whole year reading program with a lady right up the street that I found on Facebook. Just typed in dyslexic tutoring, and it pulls up the hashtag of people's posts, and there's just so many options. And there she was, and she was a godsend. You can even call your local schools and say, do you know of any tutoring on the side? This girl that I hired next year, she happens to also want to get her physical training license. And so she's like, I just graduated with my teaching degree. I'm scared to go into the system right away. I would love to do this on the side. There's like I said, there's a lot of girls that are not wanting to go into doing it yet. And they would much rather have freedom and work from home and teach kids that way.
Our nanny for Cruz right now, it sounds just like, did you hire our nanny?
No.
Okay. I was like,
keep her close.
Hold on. She can't leave. But she was a teacher, and she's also getting her physical therapy license as well. And we're like praying. We've already started the conversation a little bit, but haven't sat down seriously. And like, that's what I'm banking on. I'm like, please.
Wow, that really does sound like the girl I hired.
That's what I'm saying. Like, no, you can't have
Those
her.
are two different passions, teaching and...
I know.
But anyways, that's the kind of thing. It's word of mouth. And I think you'll find more people than not that are willing and need the job and are so great with kids that maybe in an area you're not.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, isn't that the point of homeschooling, that you want to do it for your kids? Again, I'm going back to my why. The point is, my kids are only homeschooling for 2.5 hours, and then I get them back for the rest of the day. Mm-hmm. I'm not relinquishing the homeschool because I'm not teaching per se. I'm just keeping my freedom as a family, if that makes sense.
They're not sitting in one place till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then, like you said, the homework. And I think the homework is a really big piece of the equation, especially nowadays, depending on where kids go to school. And again, if they're on a strict college path or whatever, that it's going to look different for everybody. Right. But yeah, sitting at night, 7, 8 o'clock at night, doing homework.
I remember doing that and crying about it. Like, I can't do this, and I have a test tomorrow. Like, I wouldn't even see my parents. So it was just, it's a lifestyle choice. And that's just something you're going to have to pray about and think about and discuss with the people around you. Okay.
So you started in the morning, you're going to do something similar. Obviously you're going to have more hands-on now. And then by the end of the day, it was like, okay, you would trade off with Rich. That was your time to do the things that you need to do in your business. So, when you have a business, most of the time you can create your own schedule. So I got lots and lots of questions about that, or you can outsource it, which is what we're going to be doing 100%.
Right.
I just want them where I can see them.
I was going to say, you want to keep them close, but not too far. For me, it was just like these questions these kids are coming home with and learning. And I'm like, I want to be the one that tells them about sexual things. And, like, in all honesty, like, I don't want them hearing it from a kid. I want to be the one that is feeling their emotions and that they're asking questions to and getting feelers from. And it was just so many aspects of it that I was just like, I think this is going to be right for us. And here, 9 years later, we're still doing it. So my kids don't know any difference, though. Now, for people that kids are in school and you're removing them from that, I've had many friends that their children are just so anxious ridden at school and they just cannot do it, and their worlds have changed. My youngest daughter, well, she's not my youngest. My last child we adopted at 4. So she's not the youngest, but she's the newest to our family. And she is beyond smart. She's 5 now, last week, but she's just needs social atmosphere. And so I'm a little confused. Like, wait a minute, maybe she needs to be busy all day long every day. But so I may have to add more things for her. I'm going to keep her. That's another option, is like, my kids could go on Monday. I could join another co-op that happens on Wednesdays and another one on Friday. If you have that many in your community, you're welcome to join as many as you want. So for my daughter, she's going to actually stay in Mother's Day out because they have a 5-year-old class. I'm like, well, that's just extra prep she gets. So she's going to be 2 days a week there and 1 day at the tutorial, and then we have the tutor the other day. So she's going to have options.
Yeah.
But again, I just want to reiterate to think about your child's needs and how they are and what they thrive on. My kids have not known any different. So they're like, what's school? They don't know what's public school.
They wouldn't feel like they're missing out or anything.
Yeah.
This person, she said that her school says that her son could no longer wrestle or play on the football team, and this is a big reason why she hasn't pulled him out, but he's younger. So you're saying once he gets to high school, like if he were to get on maybe not a flat, or like that's, what is it called, a rec league?
Right. And I think, again, that depends on your state. I don't know what other states do, but in Tennessee, we have a homeschool athletic program. So there's like a basketball team my son thought he would join, and he practiced for a long time. I mean, there was 20 kids on it from all different homeschool groups, but they were on the basketball team. And I'm pretty sure you need to look at your laws. In Tennessee, the kids get to stay on teams even if they're homeschooled.
Okay, so look into that. Look into
or rec teams,
homeschool league, and then in high school, hopefully it varies per state, but look into that, because I didn't realize that. And to me, that's one of the things that holds us back, is we don't know if they're going to want to be in sports, but I think that's a big draw and appeal to schools, is the sports and camaraderie there. Okay, so this question, do you have an outline for what you teach and what order, so that you just get from that one website and you kind of just make sure you cover your bases there?
I kind of try to cover my bases, but again, I have so much help that they're covering my bases. So I have a general idea, but I really have let go of that. Like my dyslexic son, he'll be going into 8th grade, but he's on the 6th grade math level because the numbers are what drives him crazy, And so I'm like, it's okay. He's going to eventually get there. He may never be good at math. I've never been good at math. And I'm just like, that's the pace we have to go. And I think, and that's what, that will be what I base curriculum on, or what choices I pick. Or we're not even looking at a workbook page. We're just going to do 10 long division problems a day and see if you can get it. And then we're going to be done, because you lose your mind and you run off upset. And we're not going to get to that point. We're just going to try. Like, I just think the hardest part for me was letting go of standard classroom setting. Like, like that, sit down at the desk. I'm going to be at the marker board. We're going to learn this lesson, and then you can go once you've achieved it. And for me, it was just like, wait a minute. They can lay in the bed and do it. They can sit on the porch on the swing and do it. They can not do it at all today, and we'll do it on a Saturday. You know what I mean? Like that, that's the choice. That's the freedom. And for me, that's irreplaceable. So.
Well, it builds flexibility too in kids. And I think that's a huge draw to me, is you're not learning to sit down in one place and follow all the rules that you're given and do things just like everybody else. You're learning to be fluid with your environment and learn wherever you are, in all places, not just in this one setting.
Right.
Which is very attractive to me.
Oh, yeah. It definitely preps them for
life.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. There's so many questions. We've covered a lot of these. Somebody said, how much wine is involved in making time for yourself?
I struggle with that a lot, because I'm a type A control freak, and I don't make a lot of time for myself. And I've seen that mental decline a little bit. So again, that's what's like, next year I have to have help. It's just how it has to go. Right.
And even the help. So do you care to talk about a price range for the pod and the help that you're getting?
Oh, sure. So I think it depends on who you hire. Like right now, I pay $20 an hour for a friend of mine to do it 2 days a week. This girl, we're paying $50 an hour, but we're splitting it. So what I think is so great is you can get 3 families and split that hourly rate. And you're like, this is beyond affordable for 3 days for 3 families, or whatever it is. And she feels like she's winning, getting $50 an hour. But she was so accredited and things. I just really felt like it was worth it for her, because she's fresh and coming out. And I was like, this is so worth it. To split it with families is so worth it to me. So that was $50 an hour split.
Okay.
But, you're looking around 20-ish, I would think.
Yeah.
Nowadays.
Well, I think that's there are going to be so many teachers now that are also waking up to this in the same way that more moms are.
Oh, I've heard of so many leaving.
So many teachers are going to wait a second.
Because they've lost, the teachers that I've spoken with have lost their freedom to sit with the kid that's left behind. And they're so driven by the standardized testings that they're required to give that show if they're doing well in the classroom. So now they're like, feel a pressure to do well. The kids are getting left behind. You know, they're under all this scrutiny. If they don't do it right, they'll lose their job. And they're just so tired and they're not paid well. And they're like, why wouldn't I go do this job for 3 hours for a couple days a week and then supplement a little other way and have freedom
and make more money?
Yeah. I just think you're going to see a lot of that coming up.
So it sounds like, because I feel like we've covered all of these questions here, but I think the most fascinating part for me is the testing element. And, you know, they like with a traditional school, they're getting quizzed consistently. They're getting tested pretty consistently. With this, unless you are college bound, you might or may not take an ACT.
Again, that's required. That's a different requirement for so my umbrella school where I report my grades to, not the tutorial they go to. It's a little confusing and will be different for every state.
Okay.
They require an ACT if college bound, and they also have the kids take a civics test at the end of their senior year, which I've already seen it. I mean, it's pretty typical, like who's under the president? Like, it's just like civics questions to where you're like, does your kid know the basics of America? And that's just what ours requires. Everyone will be different. You may want your kid to take the ACT, but I was so driven in high school. Like, we had an ACT prep class and I made a 4.0, and it was so competitive at my private school that I was 16th in the class with a 4.0. Okay. I know. And I did horrible on the ACT.
Yeah.
I mean, I looked like I had a learning I think I made like a 16 or 18. I don't know. It was just like so bad. And I can't get over the fact that they force these kids to do a 4-hour test when if you're not a good tester, they're judging your entire college future and your high school years based on that one test.
It's a good point.
And if you're not good at it and you still make a 4.0, what is that saying? It's saying some kids don't test well.
Yeah.
And that's not what your whole career or your whole future education path should be based on. So that pushed me a little bit. I was like, okay, I'm not a good test taker. I didn't do well, but I sure made a 4.0. I mean, and then you have kids, the jokes of the class that never made good grades, and they get a 30 on the ACT. And you're like, this is just backwards how people are doing it.
Yeah.
So
okay,
I wouldn't be worried about that. I think so many people are like, they're not going to be smart. They're not going to be college bound. I can't even tell you. I was watching a girl on TikTok. She already is a doctor because she homeschooled, and she got to graduate at 16 because you control your electives.
Most people graduate early.
They graduate early. She was able to start college early and get into a different program early. And she's like, I wouldn't have traded that for the world because my parents gave me the time and pushed me in the areas that, put me here today. And most homeschoolers are so smart. I hate to say that, but they're just, I think it's just because they're given different opportunities of learning. Again, not judging anybody else in public school, private school, because that was me. Even in the beginning, my husband was like, we are not doing that. You know what I mean? Like, those kids are weird. We're not doing it.
3 years ago, are you freaking kidding? And I think another element, too, we did get a couple of questions about this, is like, okay, I get why you want to homeschool, and that's appealing, but also a large draw and appeal to school is that the kids are being looked after while their parents are working.
Oh, yeah. And sometimes that's all you can do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's your choice. And that's why I'm saying it has to be family-based. But if you have people that can help you, a grandmother or a cousin, or you get into a group of women that, I'll take your kids on the days you're working, or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. It's just 2.5 to 3 hours a day.
Right.
So even if you had to squeeze it in after work and your kid, like whatever it is, you can make it work. Like, you can figure it out if it's truly in your heart of hearts. They can do the public school online program. Mm-hmm. So I just urge you to check out your options, figure out what's in your state, and go from there.
I'm most excited about this sports situation, the prom situation, that they have these things figured out.
Oh, yeah.
Because you also don't, you don't want your kid to miss out on the things. And it sounds like, and obviously every state and town is different.
Oh, yeah.
But like you said, as long as there's not any kind of, like, you have to be zoned for this, which I would assume you don't have to be zoned for.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
You could drive an hour away.
Yeah, you can drive an hour away so your kids can participate in this prom.
We have some people that do that. They drive an hour to the tutorial and they just stay around town for the day, get their groceries if they're rural, and their kids go to school. And that's their social outing for the week. And
Going
it's just
to town.
Yeah. And I know some of my friends have this, they're like into this homeschool group in Maine downtown, like in Nashville, like, and they're busy all the time doing stuff with that group. So it's just, there's just options. Look into them.
I'm pulling up because I also learned about this school from a friend of mine, Colleen, that her children goes to that I never heard of. And they're like disrupting education. Now it is a school, but it's a lot smaller classes from what it sounds like. And I just want to
and there's also like hybrid options. I didn't mention that earlier. So I have a few, I don't have any hybrid options around me, but there are some states and school systems. So they'll do 2 days in school, 2 days at home. And that's called hybrid learning. So they're actually going to a school, which is kind of like what we do, or maybe they go 3 days a week and 2 days at home. I have a friend whose kids do that. I wish that was an option here.
So it's not an option.
I think there are some in Nashville, hybrid learning. They're called hybrid learning. So you're sometimes at home, sometimes at the school. And they, if they send home iPads or laptops or whatever it is, kind of like with COVID. So that's an option too, hybrid.
So many options, guys.
I just toured the Montessori school down the street.
Love Montessori.
And I just was blown away. And I toured it for my 5-year-old because I was like, what if she's, a social gal and likes to be, I don't know how her birth mom raised her in that sense, but I can tell it about her. And so I toured the Montessori school. I was just blown away at how they teach and educate all together. So that's options too. If you can't necessarily homeschool per se, Montessori is another great option.
I just had a couple of episodes ago, a woman named Jessica Hayes, and she's been a Montessori school teacher for years, and she was sharing about that, and that was really neat to learn about. We almost put Cruz in Montessori, but I didn't love the local one, the one that's really, 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 really close to here. I just didn't like the vibe of it, but I love Montessori. We ended up trying one in a town up Hendersonville. Acton is the school that I was trying to think of. Have you heard of that? If you look up, go to acton.com or just Google Acton school or education, but it's all about like disrupting the way that it's all accredited and disrupting the way that kids learn, and it's focused more on creativity and geared more towards the child. And my friend Colleen, she said that her kid's in a class with like 12 other kids, or it's like the whole school's like 12 kids or something like that.
Okay.
But not every city has one, but we do have one here in Nashville. So that's another option as well. But it seemed really badass. If I'm
Someone else asked about unschooling.
What's unschooling?
So, again, when you're researching homeschool, you will see options of different techniques of homeschooling. So there's a Charlotte Mason technique, which was created after a woman that is more literature based. So she thought you could teach everything from books, which is true. I mean, and it's real literature based, like let's read Pride and Prejudice, and we're going to talk about, the century that it was in, and then go from there. And then there's an unschooling method that's like, we're not going to do any technical school. We're going to go on what you're passionate about right now, and we're going to teach lessons from that. Like,
wow.
Cruz loves rocket ships. So we're going to go to the library. We're going to get all the books we can find on rocket ships. We're going to do unit studies, which are huge and great. And we're going to just unschool you like from the rigorous schedule and let you learn. You want to cook today? Okay. I'm more of in the between of unschooling and typical school, because I want to have some direction with my type A personality, and I want them to kind of be.
You feel like you're working towards something.
Right. And I still struggle with that every day. I don't want them to be behind, but everyone's behind in some aspect of what they're
Right.
trying to learn. So I just want to be in between. I want them to learn what they're really into, and I want to also lead them in learning. So I think it's about learning your style of homeschooling. Like, what you can look up homeschooling methods, and there's tons of them. Mostly main 5, but that can kind of lead you in a direction. And you can be like, because that was hard for me. I was like, what kind of homeschool mom am I? Oh, I know where I fit now. I'm not this,
personality test.
and I'm not that. Yeah,
You're an Enneagram.
like your Enneagram for homeschool moms.
Hand it off.
But if you know that about yourself, like, I am not going to be good at teaching these kids. I don't have the patience. I don't have the time, but I want them to be around me. Okay. Then you need to do a tutorial or you need to hire a tutor. Like, know that about yourself before you go into it, and then know your state's options. And for goodness sake, Google is awesome for that.
We love Google. I'm very happy right now because there are so many different options, and based on, it sounds like even somebody who does work full time, she has options as well.
Oh,
or
yeah.
the parent has options. So I don't know. To me, now I'm in the camp. I'm like, okay, this is a no-brainer.
Right.
I mean, it just sounds so much more attractive personally. And then I guess you don't have experience with this, but do you know anybody who started at homeschool and then went to traditional school?
Oh, yeah. I know. I mean, because you can't feel like a failure in it. You can try it and you're like, that was not for me. I just cannot do it. And someone did ask, I'm not getting a babysitter 7 hours a day by a school.
Mm-hmm.
It is a astronomical sacrifice to keep your kids at home.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have time to yourself. You don't get to shower without someone interrupting you. You don't get to plan out your day and have a moment to think. And that's brutal honesty. It is a major sacrifice for 18 years, to focus on your children solely and not have time alone. And I can't tell you how many times I've been like, I wish my kids went to school today. All these moms are just doing what they need to do. But then again, I go back to my why, and I just think you've got to figure it out. Like, what is most important? And just know it is a sacrifice and it will be hard. But the benefits outweigh it for me.
Yeah.
I think my kids are, like I said, 5.5 years apart, not the 3 younger ones now, but they were, and they're just so close. I mean, and I really do not think it would be that way if they were in school, because one would be in high school, one would be lower. And my sister and I are 4.5 years apart, and we went to separate high schools. And, that the lack of the family unification wasn't there, and that I see now in a homeschool family.
Yeah.
I think it's, and again, you're going to have the situations where one kid goes south. I mean, it's not going to be perfect.
Every family's different. Every situation is different. But the big thing, the message here is do your research, see what's available in your state, in your town. Just know the options that you have available. There's everything from you doing it to yourself to outsourcing it to somebody else, having somebody come or go to a
co-op, tutorial, hybrid school.
There's so many options. And then give it a try if you're going to, but then don't judge yourself. Like, if you love it, great. If you don't love it, there's schools available.
If your child doesn't love it, I have some homeschool moms that were like, we put our kid in kindergarten because we didn't want to teach him to read. I've had so many moms tell me that, and then they took him out. I'm like, oh my gosh. But I mean, there's some skills. There's some skills that you just aren't capable of. And I think it's learning that you need help. It's a big thing for me. Yeah. And I'm getting it slowly in the 9th year. Someone else told me it took 6 years to really feel confident in homeschooling. So know that too. Like, give yourself grace. Like, it's different because you're being thrown different things at every moment. Like, this kid's not learning the same way as my first kid, or maybe it's a learning process. So give yourself a lot of grace. And I think knowledge is power. If you know your options, then you're more willing to make, the right one for your household.
And that's why I'm so thankful that you agreed to do this and so quickly. Seriously, I appreciate you so much.
She got me out of the house.
I threw this right on you. I was like, please come teach me all the things about homeschooling. But that's the thing, just knowledge is power. I just want all of us to realize that we have other options, that we are not beholden to the public school system or even private schools or, the typical standard education system that we used to be. Things are different. We have other options. So I'm not trying to wait for people to make changes with our education system. We're going to be sitting here all, for the rest of our lives, maybe. So for that reason, I am learning more about what else is possible and available. And it feels good.
Yep.
Thank you.
I'm glad I could help.
I am so thankful for you. Guys, go follow Rachel. Everything we talked about, it's going to be linked. This is going to be like the longest show notes in the history of ever. I'm going to be doing some more research, but I'll link everything. And of course, I'm going to link Rach, because not only for homeschooling reasons, but you offer so many other things like home decor. You talk about your family dynamic with adopting 2 beautiful baby girls. And, Rich owns a real estate company. You guys have multiple Airbnbs. You share all. And plus, by the way, Rich and Rachel have been married for how long?
Oh, we've been together 20 something, and we've been married almost 17.
Because you guys started
high
dating
school
in
sweethearts.
High school sweethearts. The most beautiful couple you've ever seen in your life.
Oh.
And
ditto.
But like, just a good follow. If you're looking for good vibes, good heart, good follow on Instagram, this is your girl at Creighton Cottage.
Thank you. I was happy to share. Ask me any questions. Happy to answer honestly and vulnerably.
Yeah, because you're all up in your DMs.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll help you out.
Yeah. So shoot her a message, and we're going to be okay, guys. That's the message here. We're going to be okay. We have a lot more power and control than
we're made to think we are.
Realize, do what?
I said we have more power than control than we're made to think we are. Exactly. That's another podcast.
That's another podcast. All right. I love you guys. Thank you so much, Rach.
You're welcome. Bye, guys.